What's happening, Hardscapers? This is episode 95 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk to you about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And today's show is sponsored by Jobber. Go check out Boost by Jobber. Apply for their grants. I want to know that somebody from this community got one of those grants, and I'd love to follow up and see how you were able to use those grants to affect your business positively in 2021. So go check out boostbyjobber.com. And today we are joined by Andre Mirasan. He is the manager technical services at Dufferin Aggregates. And I really just wanted to have this show be about talking about different specs on aggregates in our industry, including HPB or quarter-inch chip and 3/4 inch crushed clear stone, as well as the traditional installs of granular A, 3/4 inch crushed down to fines, as well as concrete sand. At the end of the episode, I really get down into why I wanted this to be on this podcast, to live on this podcast. So stay tuned to the very end, and then I come on and I just have an open conversation about why I wanted to get a quarry on this show to talk about these products and to get a different perspective as opposed to your supplier or a manufacturer, and to be able to then talk openly about how I prepare bases in my business for certain applications, because I really do believe that every application has a different base material, base preparation, whatever method it may be, that will help you be the most efficient and to provide your clients with the best product at the end of it. So stay tuned to the very end, where I talk to you about that in my business, and I'd love to know what you do in your business. So reach out to us on Instagram. We are at How to Hardscape. Just send me a message or just post a story about different applications, different base preparation methods in your business, and I will repost those, or I will repost whatever messages that you send me. I want to get this conversations kind of started and to talk about how you prepare your bases with different aggregates or different products that are on the market. So without further ado, here's our interview with Andre. Today, we're joined by Andre Mirasan. He is the manager technical services at Dufferin Aggregates, and he joins us today to talk about aggregates in the hardscape industry. Andre, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. Welcome and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to yourself. I'm excited to talk with you about aggregates. It's something that has come up a lot in my history in this industry, starting with a supplier and now in the installation side of things. So let's get started here to get to learn a little bit more about yourself, your background, and how what brought you into this industry. Any background context that you can basically provide for us here, Andre?
Thank you for asking. I am an engineering graduate from the University of Toronto, and I started in the construction business with our concrete division, Dufferin Concrete, back in 2007. So I've been in the industry for over 13 years. When I did start with Dufferin Concrete, I was a quality control technician and slowly worked my way up through the company. In my current role as a technical service manager for Dufferin Aggregates as well as Dufferin Concrete, I manage the quality teams as well as our central laboratories to ensure that our production and shipping of our construction materials to our customers meet all the necessary applicable standards, such as CSA 23.1 for concrete and aggregate materials used in concrete production, as well as the Ontario Provincial Standard Specification, OPSS, that we use for concrete aggregates, granular-based materials, and asphalt products. A little bit about our company. Dufferin Aggregates is a division of CRH Canada Group, Inc. We're part of CRH PLC Americas Materials, which is a North American leading vertically integrated supplier of aggregates, asphalt, cement, ready-mix concrete, paving, and construction services. We're a proud member of CRH PLC, which is a global building materials company based out of Ireland. Has a successful history, a strong track record of performance, and a clear commitment to safety and ethical business practices. Our company employs over 90,000 people globally in 37 countries around the world.
That's incredible, and that provides a really good context in terms of who we're talking to, yourself as well as the company and everything that they offer. But let's get down into the process of how these various aggregates are created. Can you start off by discussing how they get created?
Yeah, so let's look at us locally here in Ontario. Dufferin Aggregates offer a large range of products and services across a wide geographic footprint from the Niagara region to Northern Ontario. We have a network of over 20 aggregate sites. We have specialty products such as armor stone for landscaping. We have ag lime for farming applications. We produce granular stone and sand for large infrastructure projects. And our facilities can provide a variety of products for any type of project. We're proud to offer also recycled products that meet performance specifications while lessening the need for virgin aggregate. When it comes to our sand and gravel products, such as concrete sand, stone, 6.7 millimeter or quarter-inch chip, granular base and sub-base products, as well as 19 millimeter clear with a high crush count, these are extracted from sand and gravel deposits, which involves screening of large rocks, crushing, sorting, washing, and stockpiling the extracted materials in separate stockpiles by product. On our limestone or bedrock side, our aggregates are produced from quarry benches and put through a series of crushers to further reduce the size. They're screened, washed, and stockpiled based on the various size stones, granulars, or fine aggregate products. On our limestone sites, we have products such as concrete, asphalt, and clear stones, as well as granular-based materials that are mined and extracted from the quarry.
Getting into that process here, one particular aggregate that has really become popular within our industry and something that was introduced to myself early on working for a supplier is that of HPB, or high performance bedding. It's become really popular and it's been embraced in terms of installation. Can you speak a little bit about this aggregate, what the specs are of it, and even the compaction percentage rating on it? Because I've heard in the past, just throwing it down, it's 97% compacted without any mechanical compaction necessary. Is there any truth to this? Can we just have a discussion about this particular aggregate?
Mike, I'm glad you're asking the question. I would like to clarify, in particular, our HPB product and how it came about and the benefits and history of it. Our Dufferin Aggregates HPB, or high performance bedding, we filed it as a trademark in 1998, and it was registered in 1999 with the Building Materials Evaluation Commission. Shortly after, our Dufferin Aggregates Milton and Aberfoyle sites were approved under the Ontario Building Code as gravel, crushed rock, or limestone aggregate since December 2002. What HPB really is a 1 to 8 millimeter product with a maximum nominal size of 6.7 millimeter or quarter inch, and is referenced in the OBC for use as a ground leveling material or drainage stone. It's typically placed behind retaining walls, under floors, in and around pipes or drain tile for sewer and water main applications. It's also recommended for base and leveling course of interlock concrete pavements, under swimming pool pads, slab-on grades, or shed or hot tubs in the residential market. Today, our Dufferin Aggregates HPB is a commonly used sewer bedding material in the GTA. It's been in use over the last 25 years by large sewer contractors in Ontario on many high-profile projects in the Greater Toronto Area. It also has been specified as a replacement or base layer under paving stones from some of our paving stone contractors or customers. Some of the benefits of HPB include ease of handling, ease of placement and compaction, and it is free draining. Compaction percentages as high as 93 to 98% can only be achieved through mechanical compaction, such as using a plate tamper, although using the ASTM D698 standard proctor density is not an appropriate evaluation method of compaction for HPB, solely because the material is free draining and does not retain much moisture, which is what the proctor density is based on. And the proctor density really is better suited for granular type base and sub-base materials. When we speak to our customers, HPB is a quarter-inch clear chip-like product, and we can manufacture this at both a gravel and limestone aggregate site. And we've done testing across our various sites, and whether it is sourced from a gravel pit or limestone quarry, when it comes to its drainage or compaction properties, the performance is the same. You did mention the angularity. So angular shapes or high crush count do help interlock the aggregate better when it comes to interlocking concrete pavements applications. But more importantly, having a proper layout with a well-designed edge restraints and making sure that the soil, sub-base, and base materials are well compacted, then the material will perform satisfactorily in both warm and cold climates. So those high compaction percentages that you mentioned can only be achieved through mechanical compaction. In its loose placement state, it does reach up to 90% compaction, but it is very easy to compact in the end and leave it in place.
Absolutely. And thanks for clearing that up. That makes total sense. Typically in my company, we will use it as that final bedding layer up to 1 inch. We'll lay out our paving stones on top, and then we will sweep in the polymeric sand for the joints, and then do our compaction to, I guess, compact that bedding layer as well as to consolidate the polymeric sand into the joints. So is that how you would kind of typically see how it go as well?
You're absolutely right. Our HPB performs really well as a bedding layer. Typically, the thickness of a bedding layer is anywhere from 25 to 50 millimeters or 1 to 2 inches. But it can also be used as a base layer, and it is specified by some of our customers that produce paving stones. As long as the material is well compacted, is restrained, then it will offer the drainage and the suitability properties to perform well in both warm and cold climates.
I've seen other products very similar to HPB, that angular up to a 1/4 inch crushed, but not quite angular. Actually, I've seen everything from I don't want to describe it as almost a pea stone, but a less angular, more circular, chipped stone. I've seen, a lot of different products come onto the market that I think are trying to become that HPB, or that up to a 1/4 inch crushed stone that can be used in a similar application. Can you comment on any of these competing aggregates that are similar in shape, size, or market space that they're trying to occupy?
It's a very good question. I mean, many of our competitors also produce a 6.7 HPB-like product. As I mentioned, it can be produced both at a gravel and limestone site. At the end, I mean, a lot of the performance pertaining to HPB relates to how it is used, how it is handled, placed, compacted, and the type of application that is used in. We do know that HPB from a limestone quarry, for example, has all the particle size are angular, and they interlock better, and they offer improved performance. But at the end of the day, if the customer, the contractor, follows proper construction practices, some of them defined by the Interlocking Concrete Pavement Institute, then you should have no problem achieving the satisfactory performance using the HPB product. What we know about HPB is it is more cost affordable and easy to handle, especially in a drainage type application when you compare it to a 3/4 clear or crushed product, and it performs very similar as long as it's properly compacted in many applications.
I want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Jobber, and I'm excited to share Boost by Jobber, Jobber's new $100,000 grant program, which is built to help launch, grow, and strengthen small home service businesses. Wherever you are in your business journey, you are invited to apply for grants ranging from $1,000 to $20,000, and in August 2021, Jobber will be announcing 20 recipients. They'll be following along with your story, how the funding has impacted your business, and whether you're seeking new equipment, marketing dollars, launching a new service. You are invited to apply. The application only has 2 questions and an optional video, and I urge you to do that optional video. And you can go to boostbyjobber.com to learn more about this application. And if you're listening to this after May 5th, I still encourage you to go check out Jobber software. Jobber builds award-winning job tracking and customer management software for home service businesses. Now back to our episode. Thank you for that insight. And moving on now to something that has become very popular in our industry, and that's what's called an open graded base. It's also been called a hybrid base, where basically a 3/4 inch clear stone, angular crushed clear stone, is used as the base, with HPV being used on top up to 1 inch for that final bedding layer. Can you talk a little bit about this, about what the specs are on this 3/4 clear stone, and also just like we talked about with HPV and that compaction, how compacted is 3/4 crushed without mechanically compacting it, and what can we achieve with that mechanical compaction?
The three-quarter crush compared to the HPB is a larger size aggregate, so it is not as easy to place handle. It does offer good drainage characteristics as long as it is properly compacted using a mechanical compactor. And usually you're looking for levels around 95% compaction level or higher. The three-quarter clear product is coarser on the top sieves, and that helps with drainage, embedding and retaining wall backfill, and other applications. And the typical standard that covers clear stone properties and gradation is OPSS 1004. As I mentioned previously, HPB is more cost affordable than three-quarter clear. It's easier to handle and place and offers similar performance characteristics as the three-quarter clear in drainage and retaining wall type applications.
So with that 3/4 clear stone base and putting HPB on top of it, there's kind of two frames of mind about doing this. One is people think that there's too much loss of that HPB into the 3/4 inch stone. They think that that can fall into the cracks of the 3/4 crushed. So some people put a non-woven geotextile to separate the two. What are your thoughts on this?
That's definitely an option to do that, but when it comes to three-quarter clear as the base layer, as long as it is properly compacted, and the 6.7 or HPB material on top should not flow through the openings of the three-quarter clear. To as a precaution or to make sure that the performance is always there, a geotextile woven fabric is common and is being used, and it's very important that when that gets applied, it wraps around the edge restraints to make sure that the material locks in and doesn't move. So that definitely helps, but as long as the proper compaction levels are reached, the materials should act independently and offer the drainage and compaction characteristics that you're looking for.
Traditionally, what's been used in our industry is a granular an A gravel product, and concrete sand as the bedding layer. So instead of that 3/4 crush and HPB bedding layer, we see a granular A with that concrete sand bedding layer. Can you speak on the specs of these two materials, what we're kind of looking at here?
Absolutely. Granular A specification, in particular here in Ontario, is governed by OPSS 1010, while concrete sand properties and gradations are covered in OPSS 1002 or ASTM C33. The granular A product in particular contains both coarse and fine aggregate with a minimum percent crushed of the coarse fraction of 60%. The concrete sand is known to offer good drainage properties when used as a bedding layer, and typically where customers are looking for a bit of a more coarse sand for the bedding layer. I do know that a few landscapers, tend to like the combination of granular A as a base layer and top it with screenings as a bedding layer or fine sand. While I'm not too familiar with the performance of concrete pavers with a screening bedding layer, I have heard of issues surrounding moisture and lack of drainage leading to heaving in cold climates when using a screening type bedding layer. And the fact that you mentioned that you're using HPB as the bedding layer, I think is a much better draining product and works well as both a base and bedding layer product.
Excellent. And we kind of talk about that on our podcast, on our website, is that screening layer or stone dust. It's called a lot of different things in a lot of different places, but as you said, it causes so many issues, including the manufacturer warranties being voided if it's used because of those issues that you kind of talked about there. Andre, is there anything else that you would want to touch on about aggregates in our industry in terms while we have you kind of on the show here?
Yeah, no, just the last thoughts that I want to leave you with. When it comes to our company, Dufferin Aggregates, we're a major local employer and a proud member of the community. We always strive to continuously improve our environmental performance, provide meaningful contributions to the communities we operate in, and contribute to a more sustainable built environment through our suite of sustainable solutions. We strongly believe in the importance of having a positive impact on our community and our environment. We're always committed to ensuring our products are high quality while focusing on sustainable solutions that provide our customers with innovative options to address the changing needs of the industry and our communities. I encourage you to visit our website, dufferinaggregates.com, to learn more about our company and the products we offer, as well as our involvement towards sustainability and community involvement. Thank you so much, Mike, for having me on this podcast.
Andre, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I wanted to come on at the end of this episode here. We've just finished up, and I want to say thank you to Dufferin Aggregates and Andre for coming on the show. It was difficult to try to coordinate some sort of show around these aggregates with these organizations that are, multinational, huge corporations, and it was great to be able to talk about these different products, the compaction ratings, the characteristics behind them. This is a somewhat dry episode, but it is something that is I wanted to have live on the podcast, and various topics that I want to get into in the future. At the end there, we kind of talked about stone dust and using, some contractors using this product as a bedding layer. I actually just finished up a job, one of our first jobs of the season, where it was a raised patio on 10 inches of stone dust, and then a further portion even higher that was on 24 inches of stone dust that we are repairing for this client. And it was evident that, some of the stones were heaving, were moving around because of this and the characteristics that come with stone dust. And I just wanted to come on here to talk about stone dust for a minute here. We do have an article on this on our website. So if you go to howtohardscape.com, you go to that search bar and you type in stone dust, it will come up. Basically what we talk about here is a few reasons why you should not be using stone dust anymore. And I know we tend to get caught up into a groove and things that work for us and not wanting to change. But for this industry to move forward, if you're still using stone dust, I urge you to move away from that. Use a product like 1/4 inch clear stone, HPB, whatever you want to call it, for its drainage characteristics. Stone dust will act like a sponge, and water will sit within that stone dust and cause heaving, cause disintegration of the stone above it, efflorescence problems with the stone, and especially whatever you're using for that jointing material, whether it be polymeric sand or other jointing compounds on the market, it will negatively affect those with the water that remains underneath the stone, because that stone dust is not a free draining product. But most importantly, if none of that speaks to you, a lot of manufacturers void their warranty if you use stone dust. So not only are you, if you don't believe in those previous things talked about, you're already doing your customer a disservice by using stone dust and voiding their warranty that they would have on those stones. So if you just like the characteristics of stone dust and being able to use that in your products or not, that last point should really speak to you, because you are doing clients a major disservice using that product as your bedding layer or even your base material in some cases, if you're doing so. So there are many different alternatives on the market already for stone dust. It's time to move away from that. Now, I also want to talk about a few things that came up in this interview with Andre. When I reached out to Dufferin Aggregates and other quarries to come on the show and finally got Dufferin Aggregates to agree to come on the show, I wanted this episode to be talking about not only the specs of these different aggregates, so that once again it could live on the show, but also to talk about the compaction ratings and to mention that these open gridded aggregates need to be compacted mechanically to get them to that 95% or greater compaction. I also wanted to really use this information to talk about how I personally prepare my bases for my projects, and it's very dependent on the project. I have ways in which I prepare bases for different applications, and I think it's my way to go about it. I think if this speaks to you, I'd love to hear your feedback on this. This is kind of the open communication that I'm going for with this podcast, and to understand what you are doing with your base preparation and your applications as it may be. For me personally, it came up in the interview that HPB can be used as a bedding layer as well as a base material. When I first started in this industry, that was when I started on the supplier side. This is something that was kind of talked about with contractors, and the ease of use of HPB and quarter-inch chip, whatever it may be, that you can just basically, as long as you have that fabric separator, you can use that from the base material up. However, this is not something that I would suggest. It is specifically used as a bedding layer for myself in my business. And it is actually the only bedding layer that I use in my business. I do not use concrete sand, whatever it may be. So this is a material that I do recommend as a bedding layer, whether it's on an open graded base install, a synthetic base install, or even in granular A or 3/4 inch crushed down to fines traditional install. Basically, this is how I go about my installs in my business. One, if it's a raised patio, it's most definitely going to be an open graded base install. That is a 3/4 inch crushed clear stone, no fines in it. And what we do with that application is we never do more than 4 inches without installing some biaxial geogrid in there. So then 4 inches compaction, biaxial geogrid, another 4 inches compaction, bedding material, pavers. That is what we do for our raised patio installs. Now, if it's a patio on grade, I almost 100% of the time go with a synthetic base install. Those compressed foam sheets, gator base, whatever you may be using. I love going about those because we are still a small company, and if we can save in excavation, especially where I operate my business, and the lack of access that we generally have with these installs, I love this material. My oldest job is 4 or 5 years with this material, and it looks still great to this day. I stand behind it. It's been on the market for a long time. If you aren't installing with synthetic base, I urge you to look into that. It may not be for you, whatever it may be. The labor savings on it is huge, especially for a small business like myself. This is a major product for me in operating my business. So really, for me, a backyard patio on grade, I'm going to do a synthetic base install. It doesn't matter about the access or whatever it might be. That's how I'm going to go about it, especially in a time like this where there's lots of demand for these installs. I can fit in more projects during my season and keep up with that sort of demand as it comes my way. With this install, I'm going to use the specified non-woven geotextile with that 1 inch HPB or 1/4 inch chip clear bedding layer instead of the concrete sand with that synthetic base on top. Now, finally, when I started my business, I reached out to a lot of asphalt companies, and I actually had some already connections within asphalt companies that when they stripped out that asphalt, did the base prep, I would come in and do their front walkways in interlock or fixing a front walkway with interlock. That's kind of how I went about starting my business. So when I did that, I would almost 100% of the time go about with a granular a 3/4 inch crushed down to fines base material with an HPB setting bed. I did that because it tied in with what their base prep was, and they would come in, excavate, put in their A gravel, and then I would continue on with my project after that. It didn't make sense for me to do anything else because then it just tied in perfectly with their project as well, with their base material. I would still go about that the same way, and I would actually still go about a driveway install on a gravel as well with an HPB setting bed. That is how I would go about my installs in the front yard portion. Now, in my business currently, we're not doing a lot of those installs anymore. We're typically backyard patio installs. That's the direction I'm going about with my business, and I will still do a driveway as it comes. I just haven't done a driveway yet with a 3/4 inch crushed clear stone open graded base. I would love to know what you and your business do with these different installs and how you go about them and the reasoning behind them. I want to start this open communication and to see how everyone is going about their installs for the application. Reach out to me on Instagram, wherever it may be, and talk to me about this, how you're going about it. I'd love to share some of these responses as well. Whether you want to tag me in a story or just shoot me a message, and hopefully we can get an idea of what everybody is doing with their installs. No matter what, I try to use biaxial geogrid in all my installs to help support that. Open graded base installs, you also need to consider drainage and being able to exfiltrate that. Retaining wall installs, I'm going to use a 3/4 crushed aggregate, clean, clear, in behind that retaining wall. It did come up in this podcast that you could use HPB as well. I prefer that 3/4 inch crush clear stone in behind my retaining walls for that solution. Once again, reach out to me to talk about this. Open communication, getting to know everybody's installation applications. Once again, thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. Visit us at howtohardscape.com for more information on this subject. Type in that search bar stone dust, and that article will come up, or open graded base. We also have more information on this podcast about open graded bases if you go way back. And just search on our website, you'll find all that information with the articles and the podcast episode inserted right into there. And once again, thank you to Jobber for sponsoring today's episode. Go check out boostbyjobber.com to apply for those grants. I'd love to know if you applied for those grants, or if you're going to apply, do it now, get in there. I want to know that one of us from this community was able to get one of those grants, and follow up with you on how you were able to use that in your business. Or go check out Jobber at getjobber.com and see how that software might be able to help you in your business. And we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.